Anita Gurley-Giron. Commissioner Ulivari.
Here.
Commissioner Casey.
Here.
Commissioner Howell.
Yes. Here.
Commissioner Romero.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Romero, would you do the moment of silence?
Moment of silence for those community members that we've lost in the past week or so. Continued blessings for the moisture that we continue to get, and hopefully get some more tonight. And continued blessing for us to sit up here and we do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
What is the pleasure of the commission?
Madam Mayor. Approval of the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Amber made the motion.
I know. Do I have a second? I know that. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ulivari.
Yes.
Commissioner Howell.
Yes.
Commissioner Romero.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Casey.
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by both Commissioner Romero and Commissioner Ulivari. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July the 18th, 2018.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casey, sir.
I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of July 18th, 2018. And I did send in some very minor corrections.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Romero.
Yes.
Commissioner Howell.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Casey.
Yes.
Commissioner Ulivari.
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Casey. I believe it was a second from Howell. Or was it Ulivari? I'm sorry. A second by Commissioner Howell. Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is public input. We do not have anybody signed up for public input. The next item on the agenda is the presentation, our Housing Authority Finance Report by Natasha Martinez-Padilla.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, in front of you, you have the first month of our FY19 revenue and expenditure report. As you can see, our revenues are at 8% and our expenditures are at 5%. Our operating expenses are low at this point, but we should be catching up on expenses as we go through, especially because like our utilities, the first couple of months are for the last month of the previous year.
Questions, comments? Let's continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The next item on the agenda is discussion. The first discussion item is the compliance monitoring review, the HUD response. In your packet, you have the compliance responses from HUD of the 18 findings on the paperwork that was sent. We have 11 that were completed and approved by HUD, and there are 7 that it states are incomplete. Are there any questions on the review?
Yeah, I'd like for you to give us a full explanation as to how we got here.
Okay, the original letter was addressed to the city mayor on December the 22nd. The Department of Housing and Urban Development submitted this letter after a review of the Housing Authority and city policies. And so they gave us, there were 18 findings found on the Housing Authority. We were given
By February 28th.
Okay, so we received the letter on December 22nd. We had a deadline of February the 28th to address the 18 findings. Of those 18 findings, they were all submitted to HUD in the packet that we had delivered to them. We recently received, the city manager received the responses from the head office, which does address each of the findings and their response as to how they found our responses. Would you like me to go over each response, or I'm not sure how?
Well, I'm thinking that maybe I can read the responses, the regulatory citation, the corrective action. So essentially, all the work that we did didn't correct any action.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, it addresses each and every one. So like the first one does say that it's incomplete. There are a few that you go down, number 1, 2, 3, 4 were incomplete, 5 incomplete, 6 was complete, 7 was complete, 8 incomplete, 9 incomplete, 10 complete, 11 complete, 12 complete, 13 incomplete, 14 complete, 15 complete, 16 complete, 17 complete, and 18 were complete. So out of the 18 findings, 11 were completed and they did approve, or they accepted. And the
Okay, so
other,
let's start with the incomplete ones.
okay, would you like me to?
You're going to go keep everyone? Okay. So the first one is finding number 1, the governance rule. What the corrective action that was asked of the City of Las Vegas was that all board members complete the Lead the Way board training no later than February 28th. This finding was incomplete. The response does not include documentation confirming that all board members have completed the training. Our office has confirmed that Councilors Casey, Howell, Romero, and Resident Commissioner Ember Davis have confirmed completion of those commissioners. So I guess all board members meant the full commission needed to.
And my response to that, as has been, and it hasn't changed, is that in the past we received a waiver to them.
A waiver? Okay.
That's what we did, but we're going to have our attorney address the incomplete responses, and also I'm going to call Tana Vega, because a lot of them seem to be tied into the state statutes and our policies. So Tana, could you please come up? What I'm going to do is pretty much turn it over to Tana and also to our city attorney as we move forward, because there's a lot of information that I think has not been addressed here. And we have, for example, our attorney who has tremendous history with housing. So I don't believe that anyone is more qualified to address any of those concerns far more than our city attorney. And also, Tana, you've been here with the city for a long time. You understand the policy of disposition of procedures for detailed assets and things of this nature. I don't agree with this report. I'll tell you immediately. I worked at DFA for years. We handle a lot of the financials, and I'm reading this, and I just don't agree with the incomplete findings. I think that they're cited incorrectly.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, finance follows DFA requirements. We also follow GAAP and we follow GASB. And our financial auditors, in addition to reviewing the City of Las Vegas financial statements, they also review and the housing, and they did not make any type of findings saying that there was improper reporting or recording of the assets, dispositions, the method used for depreciation purposes, and so.
And these are professional auditors,
These are
correct?
professional auditors approved through the state auditor's office. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, absolutely. This is open
I-
for discussion.
I mean, I appreciate Mrs. Vega being there, but we're discussing this one, the first finding, so that we cannot confuse everybody. Can we address each finding that is
Well, I jumped
incomplete
into
and
finding two
and
because
discuss
finding
it?
one I pretty
Yeah.
much addressed. That was given a waiver to us in the past, and I will probably go into rebuttal that one.
Okay, because,
So the biggest concern that I have are the financial findings. Because I know they have given a waiver to us in the past, and I will be addressing that. Okay, so let's jump into number 2, because those are the key findings. Okay, that's what Tana's
Yeah,
addressing.
number 2 is the City of Las Vegas disposition policy and procedures. It cited that they are not detailed enough to properly dispose of assets. Although the board may have approved a policy stating they may dispose of assets, there is no detail on how to dispose other than the policy stating approved to dispose of those assets. Upon a decision to dispose of assets, the state auditor's office is contacted with a list of the assets in addition to DFA, since these are assets that have been acquired through federal funds. It's also the responsibility of housing to get clearance from HUD to give approval on those disposal of those assets.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely, it's open for
Okay,
discussion.
it says the response is incomplete. The response included a copy of NMSA 13-6-1. This is a state statute, not a City of Las Vegas policy and procedure.
That's correct. I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
and
interrupt.
while I understand that you're diligent in following state statute, what HUD is asking for here is policies and procedures to implement that statute.
What they're asking for are written policies and procedures. Unfortunately, when I came on board, there are no written policies and procedures. To the best of my ability, I have followed what I was trained to do through GAP and through GASB, in addition, following the procedures to inform a federal agency for approval to dispose of those assets. But they're not written, and specifically, that's where their response is going to. And they need to be written and brought before the commissioners for approval and adopted.
Okay, so then in order to complete that, we need to get that done?
In the process of answering these findings, we did prepare draft policies and procedures. They do not reference them. This is the first indication that I know that they were not approving those written policies and procedures, so they were never brought back to commissioners for approval.
So, excuse me, so those drafts were provided to...
Yes, ma'am.
To Mandy, correct? Ladies? Were those drafts provided to Mandy?
Is that what was submitted?
Whichever draft,
accounting?
whichever draft
That was provided by
was
finance.
provided by finance was provided. When we responded to it, we did cite this one as what we followed because that is what the response we got from finance, so that's what we provided.
But there was a draft that was provided as well.
For the disposition?
Yeah.
Is there one for that? Yes.
And we never received approval?
No.
Or did we receive any information?
Well, they were in draft form, and I'm
Did
assuming
we ever get any feedback from
I
them?
never got back any feedback. Housing personnel may have, but I never received any feedback from any official at HUD.
Okay. Counselor Howell?
Thank you. From what I understand in reading all of this is that they wanted an approved policy.
Yes, sir.
Sent to them. If it's a draft and it hasn't been approved by the council, then they would not approve it.
That's correct.
Right. So,
And we submitted a final in case there were changes they would like to make that we did not address certain areas. And that was the reasoning behind submitting the draft before bringing it to the commissioners for approval.
Oh, okay. Did you get that? Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I didn't see anything that they gave us any additional time to respond. I mean, we had till February and they're just saying it's incomplete. Have they told us that we have some additional time to go ahead and to adopt these draft policies so that they can then decide whether they're sufficient or not?
That's the deadline they gave us.
They gave us the deadline of February 28th. There was additional policies that we had to do, such as amending the admissions and continued occupancy policy,
Right.
policy, sorry, which is 438 pages, which we did come and we did bring to council and we did adopt. So we did do like those policies, but we did put
All the way
other-
through, you see these, the draft policies were provided, so it's like they're not saying, go ahead and do it. I mean, we've missed the deadline, so that's just it, period.
This was the deadline for the compliance for the letter that was given to us. We don't actually know, like, I couldn't tell you, they want whoever's managing the housing authority, whichever entity is managing the housing authority, to have those policies in place for the housing authority to follow, is the way that I understand it. That's not,
Right.
that's the way I understand it. That's all I can say on that.
So, but you haven't, like, talked to them since you received this to find out whether they want us to just go ahead and adopt these draft policies and send them to them?
No, they
Madam Chair,
didn't.
Commissioners,
Yeah, go ahead.
the way, like she said, we provided the responses between both the Housing Authority and the City of Las Vegas combined into a binder. And then we did actually, our HUD analyst was in the office on March. She did, everybody was invited to attend that. And at that time that's when we sat with her and went through each of the findings that were the Housing Authority's responsibility. And we did get some feedback as to exactly, we wanted to make sure we did everything we needed to do it correctly. As Natasha stated, some of them were in draft form at the time that we did present them. After we did get approval, we did submit the approved ACOP. So that, we didn't, as far as the things that say CLV, City of Las Vegas, we just submitted them, and I'm not sure if they had feedback from HUD after that.
Yes, come on up, please.
I'm sorry, this is the first time that we have the corrective action plan. This was submitted to us along with the resolutions, the sample resolutions. This was just submitted to us last week. So we're going to get a little bit back.
And when did they submit to you the actual resolution for approving the transfer? Last week as well?
Yes, at the same time.
We have the 30th.
And I can tell you the date, because I can tell what
30th.
what day was it?
It's been 2 weeks.
It was Wednesday, last Wednesday.
So we
30th,
received it on
No,
Wednesday.
we received it, no, we had the conference call last
On the
week.
30th, that was the conference call.
Yeah.
And then,
Not on the
did we
30th.
receive, we received it by the end of the month, though, didn't, or by the end of that week, because I was still in the office and then I went on vacation that next week. That's the only reason I know.
It's just been a week.
So nobody asked, are we supposed to
So it's
just,
actually one of the-
No, no one's reached out to finance. And this, like Ms. Gallego stated, this is the first time we've seen this.
But we had the conference call on July 30th, and none of that was discussed in the conference call? I'm sorry, Leah.
That's okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the compliance responses were not discussed at that time, but after that meeting is when the city manager did receive the email, which is the first time we also saw this responses.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. We spoke to, we had the conference call on July 30th, and then I emailed her back and I said I need more information for the commissioners. One of the things that they had entrusted us to do, am I correct, is that they requested us to bring the resolution to the commissioners. And at that point, I said, no, we need to take further, we need to at least have an open discussion with the commissioners prior to any of us making any kind, bringing in a resolution for approval without some type of discussion. And that's when we started to receive the resolution, and I did say that we would bring it to you, but in draft form only. I also, and that's when she finally attached the findings in the corrective action plan. It hasn't been more than a week.
Thank you.
Can I follow
Counselor
up?
Casey, yes, of course.
When Mandy Griego was here in March, I met with her, and we did not discuss the findings in detail, but I do believe that she mentioned to me that she had not finished receiving the responses from the city at that time, and she was waiting for those. So I don't know if she was referring to the policies and procedures to implement state statutes, or
Well,
what it was that she was waiting for, because we didn't go into any detail.
Natasha and Barbara delivered the whole packet along with the draft copies of the proposed policies and procedures. And it was on March 31st.
No, February
28th.
28th, we drove it up.
February 28th.
February 28th, we drove everything up.
Everything was submitted on February 28th. And keep in mind, I was busy working on the special audit at the same time this was happening. So if I didn't attend a meeting, then I was involved in the special audit meeting business. So, but it was delivered on a timely basis, and like Ms. Gallego stated, this is the first time finance has seen these.
Yes.
I just had a question. Just
Commissioner Romero?
in my history, I've worked with Head Start, which is also a federal program. And, we have had, at the time we had findings within Head Start. And, I just find it hard to believe how we would submit the state statute instead of policy, which, I've seen where policy that, within the federal program must abide not only state, and I think that's where you said what we're doing is we're going by what the state is saying. But the policy that's drafted and through Head Start, and now in this case would be HUD, it has to also reflect, the requirements of the federal programs. I don't know how we would.
It does, we do follow the federal program. Like I said, I have housing reach out to HUD, just like any of our other federal grants, such as, for example, the police department receives federal grants, and they have to get permission from that federal grantee to dispose of those assets. So we are following that. In addition, I am entrusted with following GASB 34 and in addition to GAP, which I do. And those, GASB 34 sets out the standards for reporting. We just don't happen to have them formally written and adopted by the commissioners or, for example, the City of Las Vegas governing body.
So my understanding is that you were waiting for feedback
Yes, ma'am.
from Mandy, correct?
Yes.
That's really
And I guess this is going to fall back to, this is a different subject, but I think Councillor Howell has brought up plenty of times about let's address, this ain't really an audit. I mean, yes, it's going to be an audit finding eventually, but right now these are corrective actions. But these are the things that we should have been, and I know he's brought it up, the housing, are we doing what we're supposed to? So it's not new that these items that we're discussing today, that, to me, they're all policy. A lot of them is policy, which, all it would have taken is to, put those drafts, bring them to us, we review them. I mean, from December till we're July, August now. It just amazes me how that wasn't done and the ball was dropped somewhere. I mean, whether we had gotten a response or anything, even if we had adopted those draft resolutions, at least we said, well, we did our policy, we adopted this policy. It might not be what they want, but at least we adopted it. And that's sort of the confusing part, is why it wasn't brought to us.
Actually, let me respond to that, because I did review some memos from Mandy that went to actually Anne Marie and also to Tana, where she was not working with the administrative staff. She was not accepting recommendations from this level. So I believe that the staff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anne Marie, sent her something in draft form, because there's correspondence, but she just wasn't working with this administration. It's not like the administration dropped the ball. I don't agree with that statement at all. They have been working diligently and as stated on the audits, in addition to providing corrective action responses to Mandy. And part of those responses included her her thoughts of possibly the city not complying based on her understanding of state policy. So I believe that the staff didn't drop the ball. I believe that they sent her the draft policy for her review and approval. And up until recently, and you ladies admitted that you sent those, we received this about, what, 7-10 days ago? So up until then, we hadn't got a response from Mandy with regards to, yes, I will accept the draft, or no, this is unacceptable, this is what I recommend. Nothing was provided to us from Mandy other than a transfer and the corrective action 10 days prior to this meeting.
I've worked with, as chairman, I was very involved with the Head Start. I just find that hard to believe that
Well,
they wouldn't.
okay, and I understand where you're coming from, but also understand that there's 20 years of history with this person. And nothing has changed. Every time that we have a situation, it's a corrective action. There's some cooperation, and then there's a lack of cooperation. I've been here in the seat 10, 11 years now, and of those 11 years, 20 of those years have not been productive for the city. And it's primarily because of the Albuquerque HUD office. And it's documented. But I'm going to have Danielle provide a complete history of the transfer and things of this nature, and the history, actually.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can say really is that it's not like they have rejected any of these draft
Exactly.
policies. They just say that they're incomplete because they haven't actually been adopted. So, depending on what happens with the transfer of the housing authority, I guess, will determine whether you want to just, take those policies that apparently have been prepared. I mean, I wasn't involved in that part, but, they're not saying that they're rejecting these things. They're just incomplete
Exactly.
because they haven't been adopted. So depending on what you decide to do about the transfer, you may or may not decide that it's appropriate to just adopt all these policies that were sent in draft form.
Councilor Howell?
So, do we have the option of not transferring? I thought the decision was already made at HUD's that we have
Well,
to
it could
transfer.
go into receivership, if I'm correct. But there's also, before you ask for a transfer, you have to have a transitional plan, and nothing like that has been proposed to the city that I'm aware of. So, you have to have the transitional plan. You have to have a full plan of action as to how this is going to happen, financials, everything closed out. Nothing of that has occurred, nothing.
No, because this is the first step. Can I speak?
You can state that, but we've got, go ahead.
Okay, I spoke to Mandy yesterday, and I had a lot of questions that I wanted to ask her. And this is the beginning of the process. And I said, what if we all say no? And she says, then the HUD, federal HUD, will file suit, and you will go into receivership. So, to me, that is going to cost a lot of money that we don't have. And we knew back in December that if we did not comply with, correcting the deficiencies that were found in the compliance review, that there was a possibility that we would lose the contract to another entity, and that has happened. And she did express to me her concern that there has not been much movement in the repayment agreement for the money that was embezzled 15 years ago, whenever it was. The positive things that we talked about was, as she said, in the process of divesting, these resolutions that we're going to discuss tonight are part one of moving forward with that procedure. And that in that divesting procedure, the city can formally request forgiveness for some of that debt that's owed. And she said, as far as she knew, HUD, the feds had never forgiven such a huge amount of money, but there's always the possibility that maybe parts of it could be,
Actually, there was a period when some bonds were dissolved, or they assumed those liability, those bonds. And that was, I don't quite remember, but it's in one of the audit reports I was reading back in the early 2000s.
And our debt is not as large.
Well, it's undetermined because the housing unions, they cited in the report on procedures performed over the home ownership, it's kind of hard to put a cost estimate on those homes because depending on when the rebuilding starts to occur, construction costs have to be at current date. And so they couldn't put that in a formal letter, and any kind of decision could be made on that type of liability.
We're kind of getting into the discussion of the resolution, if it's okay. The thing that concerns me about this resolution, and I've told Natasha and Barbara this, is, there, supposedly what they have been told is that, you adopt the resolution, then you go into a period of negotiation. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing in this resolution that says anything about that. It just says hereby approves the transfer. And, along with the resolutions that came to the city, and you have this in your packet, is this letter from Mandy, which basically follows this notice, PIH 2014-24, which is the notice for the process for public housing agency voluntary transfers and consolidations. And, in her letter, and in this policy, her letter tracks this policy, and in this policy, it says that what is submitted, you start with a letter from both from the receiving public housing authority and the divesting public housing authority, requesting the transfer. Mm-hmm. And then it goes through a whole list of things that you have to provide at the time that you provide this request. And as far as I can tell, none of this has been done at this point. So the requested effective date, which has to be at least 120 days after the submission date, an inventory of the projects and the units to be transferred or consolidated, including development grouping, numbers and the buildings of units associated with each number required by HUD, including submission of final audit and financial statements, resolution of each divesting housing authority governing body agreeing to transfer consolidate its programs to or with another housing authority and to complete all transfer consolidation actions. Then is when you would have a resolution, so that you would present, I guess you would present the resolution along with this letter requesting. And then, it goes through a lot of exactly what Mandy has in this letter, an opinion from the Council of the Divesting Housing Authority, indicating the representations you're making, the statement from the divesting, identifying demolition, disposition, conversion actions, statements identifying and describing the instrumentalities of affiliates and nonprofit entities, the identifying non-HUD programs that may have an impact. So, to me, that was the question I asked, and I know that that Natasha and Barbara called and spoke to Julian, who is Mandy's, the person that holds Mandy's job that covers Raton. And he wanted this language, but, it does bother me that you would have a resolution that wouldn't really say what it is that you're really thinking is going to happen, because supposedly, you adopt the resolution and that begins a negotiation process. But where does it say that in here? It doesn't say anything about that you're beginning the negotiation process. And it doesn't really follow the notice, which is outlined in Mandy's letter. So to me, there's like a lot of information that has to be put together as a packet. In addition to, the resolution is just like one little part of what has to be done to make this thing start. I think that you could adopt a resolution that allows you to write the letter to begin the process of the transfer. But if the idea is that we're going to negotiate some of these items, like basically the balance now that we owe to HUD is $413,000 plus 5 units. And we would like to be able to negotiate some of that away, if not all of it away. To me, part of what you're going to submit according to this notice is what the result of that is. I mean, it's like we have to negotiate with HUD to find out whether they're going to, we're not just going, because if you just say, okay, we're adopting this resolution, and what are you just accepting the fact that the city is going to have to put back the 15 units and pay back the 413,000? When the goal is to try to negotiate some of that away. One other thing that also caught my attention in talking to the housing group, Natasha and Barbara today, is that, we have 4 employees that are union employees. And, so I went to the union contract because, usually you have to deal with the union contract. And there is this section, Article 3, privatization and contracting out, that talks about that the city agrees that prior to privatizing or contracting out bargaining unit positions, the union will be allowed to submit input in writing not later than 10 working days after the notice from the city. And the written notice is then presented to the city manager, and then a written response is due 10 days after that. So, to me, if you're contemplating doing this is another part that has to be fit into this plan. And it doesn't say that they have the right to stop you from doing what you want to do, but it says that they have a right to speak to it. And if we have 4 bargaining unit employees at housing, I don't think we can just ignore that part of it, of the union contract that says that we have to give notice to them that we're contemplating doing this. Now, we're just in a discussion tonight, but those are some of the things that concern me, is that, they want you to adopt this resolution, but to me, the resolution ought to make it more clear about what it is you're envisioning is going to happen at this stage, that you're going to begin a negotiation with HUD, that you're going to begin the process of requesting the transfer and then going through all of the steps that this HUD notice requires you to go through. Because this is like a packet of material that has to be submitted to HUD. It's not that dissimilar to, they say you have to have this on February 28th. Well, they're saying that when you submit this, you have to have this whole packet of material ready to go. The explanation that I would assume would be after the process of negotiation. So that's the thing that concerned me about these resolutions, because it says, one of them says we approve the operation, and the other says that you approve the transfer. And yet, you haven't even negotiated what the transfer would be. So,
Exactly.
It concerns me that this resolution is so vague. It's just like one sentence. Now, therefore, you approve the transfer without any, where does it say in here that it's the beginning of negotiations?
Councilor Tayson.
Thank you. It's very clear, Danelle, on page 19 in the email that Mandy sent. It doesn't say that we have to pass that particular resolution, first of all. And it says the first step in the process is for council to pass the resolution authorizing the activities related to the transfer. All we're doing is passing the resolution that says, yes, we want to negotiate a transfer. Basically, that's what that resolution should say.
It should say that.
Well, but let me finish.
Doesn't say
Once that has taken place, staff work to gather the additional information and documents to submit the package to HUD. They give you 120 days to do that. It says our office recommends that the initial resolution, which is what we have in our packets tonight, authorizing the activities, also include a directive to enter into a management agreement with the receiving public housing authority, so the staff from both agencies can work together for a smooth transition process.
So wouldn't you think that it would say
after
that?
talking to Mandy yesterday, this resolution, we can, it's a draft that they're sending, it's a sample.
Mm-hmm.
We can add language to it, we can change that language, but we need to submit it saying that, we don't want to go to federal court to fight over this. we're okaying the transfer, we want to negotiate all the terms of the transfer, and that's all we're doing.
Well, that's why, I mean,
And
you know,
the
that's why I
second-
raised
The
this issue.
second resolution is so that Raton, who would be receiving the contract, is willing to work with the city of Las Vegas to negotiate those terms. That's all those resolutions are doing.
Well, except that they don't say what you
Well,
just
we-
said.
well, we
They
need
should
to-
say that.
We need to fix them so that they do.
Right.
But that's the
Agree.
first step. And so after they receive those resolutions, then we have 120 days to start working on that negotiation process. And I want to make it very clear that the city is not going to lose money because the money is all federal funds. The city has a bank account that holds those federal funds, but the money doesn't belong to the city. It's not general fund money. It's federal dollars. And so all that's transferring is the contract. Instead of the city managing the contract, it'll be Raton managing the contract. Employees that want to become employees of the city instead of housing have the opportunity to request transfers to any open positions that are open here at the city. And Virginia Marujo did a real nice job of posting every job that's open here at the city on Facebook. And so there's at least, 15, 20, I think, that you posted, Virginia? Some of those people that are working at housing that wish to be city employees can ask for those transfers.
It's not going to be
So-
that simple because you have a pay plan.
Well, I know you
And
do,
it's
but what I'm
higher,
saying
and they're gonna
is
take a cut
if
and
they
pay.
fit in there, that, those are things that need to be negotiated, but that negotiation can't take place until the resolutions are done. And so I would suggest, because Raton is having their meeting next Tuesday, they want to take action on this as soon as possible so that they can start negotiation process with us, that we work on that, those resolutions and get them ready to go so that we can have a special meeting maybe next Monday at the very latest. And so, we need to do something to address this because otherwise, I'm really afraid that if we end up in receivership, where are we going to find, and no offense to you, Danelle, but I don't know if you want to go to federal court.
I'm
you know?
not, yeah, I'm not.
And so we need to
not in that
find
position.
an attorney who knows federal HUD regulations and laws to work for us, and that's going to cost big bucks.
Which is not coming out of housing.
No, it's not coming out of housing, it's going to come out of our funds here, general fund, and we can't afford to do that. And if we can get, Mandy did a real nice job of listing all the good things that could happen if we transfer that contract. We would have, a bigger housing project. We would qualify for more federal funds. We could create programs for the families that live in the housing project. All of those things would be really positive things for Las Vegas. Instead of having 19 boarded up units, we might be able to get enough money to open those up, rehab them, and offer more housing to the people that really need it. Those are the things that we need to consider instead of, fighting over, we're going to fight this, we're going to fight this. If we're going to be fighting a losing battle, do we want to do that and lose all that money and still end up losing in federal court? Is it worth it?
Well, we've been through this process, Commissioner Casey, in the past, and it never got transferred. The housing has remained here. I think the other thing we have to look at is although we have a bigger housing taking over, which would be Raton, we also have to consider the cultural sensitive issues here, because it's not going to operate as it has in the past. There's going to be other individuals who will be monitoring that. So I would have a huge concern about that. And in the past, I know for a fact that they have attempted to transfer, but I believe that it always came back to the fact that it was in the best interest of the city to maintain the housing here. So I don't see it going that far. I really don't. But again, I do agree with Danielle that there are a lot of things that need to come forth with regards to negotiations before we enter into a transfer of any proposed transfer of the housing.
Well, I think we're already there.
Well, that's
We
your
would-
opinion, but I
we
think we
would,
still need
uh,
a further review. And I'd also recommend that we have Danielle involved because you have, 20 years of history dealing with the housing. So we need, there's a lot to negotiate. It's not going to be as simple.
Well, no, but we don't negotiate
And it's
first
not
and then
going to
do the
be,
resolution
it's not
later.
going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in 2 months. I don't even know if in 3 months it's going to happen because there's so much detail. 20 years of history or more that frankly, I don't believe that Mandy and HUD would actually negotiate what the city would want and what the city would propose to.
So then we're going to end up in federal court, is what you're saying.
I don't see that happening either.
I think it will.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. Okay,
No, it's not my opinion,
Counselor-
it's after I spoke to
Commissioner
Mandy.
Romero?
I'm sure that it's going to happen.
I just had, how much time have you been involved in this right now?
Oh, today.
That's all?
Yeah, so I spent, a big part of the day reading this, getting a hold of the, this PHI notice, looking at the union contract, trying to have an understanding because, basically I was told yesterday that I was going to be coming to this meeting. So, that's what I've tried to look at everything as I can today. And, right away when I saw the resolution, Mandy indicates what should be in the resolution, but when Julian put the resolution together, that's not what the resolution said. So, if you're going to adopt the resolution to begin the process, I think the resolution ought to be clear that that's what this resolution means. It's not that you're approving this transfer. It's that, like Mandy says, as you pointed out, Councilor Casey, that that the initial resolution authorizing the activities include a directive to enter into a management agreement with the receiving PHA so that the staff from both agencies can work together. So, to me, that's what the resolution ought to say, not that we're approving the transfer, because, what is the transfer? We don't even have a proposal for what the transfer is, and the notice and Mandy's letter is very clear about what needs to be put together. So, if the council decides or the commission decides they want to proceed, I just think that the resolution ought to say what you're really trying to do, rather than some vague statement about we approve the transfer. What does that mean?
And I guess that's where, you worked on it all day. Why was that call not made to Mandy to ask her the specifics as to?
Because I figured that I would come to council and see what you really want to do. I didn't call Julian, but Natasha and Barbara called Julian at my request to find out, why is it that these resolutions are put together the way they are? And he told them, according to what they told me, is that they want them to be this way and that we shouldn't be making changes to the language. But, to me, if you're passing a resolution, it ought to say what you're really doing, not some vague statement that could be misconstrued down the line. If the goal of council is to work on this transfer, put that language in the resolution. And we're discussing the resolution tonight, so you're not adopting it tonight. And if I get direction to rewrite the resolution according to what is really going on, I can rewrite the resolution, but at this point, this is what they have presented to you, not what I have presented.
And then my other question is to you, Madam Mayor, is you talk about they're not going to do, if we transfer, Raton will not do what we ask. Could you explain?
No, it's not
'cause
that.
done.
I'm not saying they're not going to do what we ask. I think that the cultural differences are going to be, that was one of the concerns that has been raised already by some of the residents, that it's going to be differently operated. And maybe I'm wrong with that assumption, but I believe that will happen.
Because, if I sort of remember housing, aren't they trying to regionalize the whole housing authorities all around?
They've been working on that for years,
So,
but they have, some of them have failed as well. And got into
and I think this is one of those items where, we're elected to do what's right, and that's, I mean, to me, power, I mean, there's no power over,
No, there's
overseeing the housing
And
authority.
they can,
And this is one of those items that sometimes you have to fight the bullet, and I mean, I'll be honest right here.
we
openly,
don't
I
have
think
a
we to
problem with
stick up.
that. We've discussed all this already, but I think it's just a process. The process isn't being followed.
We're not following the process.
Actually, the resolution isn't following the process.
Madam Chair?
Well, that's why we can.
Commissioners, I'm
do
sorry,
that.
I just wanted to correct that, we did speak to Julian, and he did state that, and I believe that that's what we did let you know, is that it's a draft. So this is not set in stone, that's why this is the important part, is the discussion. It can be adjusted as needed, and that's really the purpose of this meeting, is to discuss that, and this is what we need so that we do get on that resolution the way it should be. So really, this was a sample draft, and this is not, we're not taking this for approval, it's a draft.
Madam Chair.
Um,
I just am wondering, Mandy called the city manager and you two?
The four of us. It was,
Oh, okay.
Tana was involved as well.
Okay, that's right, it's on the list. I'm just wondering why we weren't told right away. 2 weeks have gone by and I get this in my packet for the meeting tonight. It's like a slap in the face because we had no idea that this was happening.
Yeah.
And, if we're expected to be able to have input and talk about this, and I'm sorry, this is a very serious issue, a very complicated process, a complicated issue, and nobody thought of calling a special meeting to let us know what was happening?
It's
Let
only
us know what the
discussion.
possibility was? Well, that's okay, we could have discussed.
Well, we are discussing
Well,
it.
I know, but we should have been discussing 2 weeks ago, not now.
We didn't have to call a special meeting for discussion, Councilor Casey.
Well, we should have, is
Well,
what I'm saying.
I
We should
don't
have,
agree with you.
we should have, because this is a very serious issue.
And an
We
issue
should
that
have
needs to be
had that
addressed.
discussion right away so that we would not be surprised and wonder, what the heck,
May I respond to that?
Yes, please do.
We did not, the decision was made to wait until we got the draft resolution in order to present, but, because myself and city manager were not aware of what the language was going to entail. And she received it just last week in time. Actually, I think it was received on Friday, in time to submit with your packets.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Howard.
Thank you. I stated in my previous comment tonight, that do we have an option to save the housing authority to be here at Las Vegas? And in listening to the discussion, I see that HUD has apparently made their decision. And I see in that July 30th letter, on the phone conversation, I guess it was, it's the summary, it says that the first point of action here was opportunities to move forward with development and other HUD programs have become stagnant. That's here in Vegas. So that's telling me that the actual transfer of the authority is going to go to another entity because it's stagnant here. And with all of the findings and the incompletes and all of that, the question I asked was, do we have the time or the saving time to address those findings that's incomplete so we can save the housing authority here?
I believe we do. Anne Marie, what are your thoughts on that?
We could, as a matter of fact, Commissioner Casey, yes, we did receive them last week. We tried to get all of the girls did try to get all of the resolutions. It takes time to get those. And they were sending things at different periods of time, different dates. And so when we got all of the information, if I hadn't stepped in and said we need to do this for discussion, the resolutions would have come to you immediately for approval. I didn't think that that was appropriate. I thought that the discussion was something that we should all be part of. As far as the findings, this is the first time, last week was the first time that we received the final copy of the findings. And if HUD agrees that we come back to the commission and bring the policies and procedures as drafted, because that's what we were waiting for. We were waiting for the recommendations because I felt that Mandy sometimes requested that we input some of the federal regulations as well as the state regulations. And so waiting for those and then taking care of 2 other audits that we were addressing at the time was a little bit on the difficult side. But as far as what Councillor Howell has said, yes, we can, because that's an easy thing. We have the policies that have already been submitted. All we need is approval from the commissioners, and we're done. We have completed then the findings.
Okay, but another point in this letter says, opportunity to move forward with development of Las Vegas Housing Authority is well below their fair cloth. I don't know what that means, but limit which leaves room for growth and possibility of new and improved housing in the city of Las Vegas.
That's because of the scores. We're a small agency. Therefore, we don't qualify for as many funds as possibly another bigger agency. And that's one of the reasons behind it. They talk about some of the youth programs and other capital outlay programs that they would have if, in fact, we went into a larger regional authority. But that would be up to the commissioners as well as to whether you would want to do that or not. But that's one of the reasons is we have a small agency. We run a small agency.
So thank you. Councilor Casey, if I may. Since you talked with Mandy, did she say what would happen if we don't go forward with this resolution?
Well, when I asked her, I said, what happens if the commission votes no on the resolution? And she said, we take you to court. So to me, that means that the decision has already been made, period.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And so, that's what I'm hearing from her.
Yeah, but this has come,
If I may ask,
transfer has come, I don't know how many times to the city. And it hasn't happened throughout the years.
I know, but still, she did send me a email. If I can read it
Yes,
into
of
the
course,
record,
anything
can I read
that
it
you-
into the?
Absolutely, because anything that you state or share with other council members has to be shared with the public.
I
While
haven't
we are
shared
in
this
open
with
session.
anybody.
Go ahead and share it.
This is the
As a
email
matter of
that I
fact,
got
I'm gonna
from
give it to
Mandy.
Barbara so she can
Okay.
read it if you want.
Oh, okay, you want to read it? And that way it can become a part of the record,
Exactly.
so that you know exactly what it was that
And
we
could we
talked
have a
about.
copy of that as well for the record?
You can have that.
Oh, perfect.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the letter says, "Good morning, Barbara. Thanks for talking with me yesterday. I really appreciate you taking the time to understand this process. I want to emphasize again that our priority is to have adequate management and governance of the program for the benefit of the low-income families of Las Vegas. This does not mean we are unconcerned about the employees. We have seen through many previous transfers that the employees are also better off with high-performing, stronger housing authority. I'm also attaching the original set of reports from 2005 that detailed the fraud, theft, and mismanagement during Lawrence Quintana's tenure. After his departure, HUD contracted with a consulting firm to conduct an independent assessment to confirm our findings. That report is attached as well. We then contracted with another firm to serve as a board advisor for 4 months, train staff and council, develop new policies, and help select a new executive director. HUD invested a couple $100,000 to help the city fix these issues, and all in vain. Subsequent administrations, with one exception, have had similar issues, though not as severe. As it always seems to happen in Las Vegas, politics interfere with the performance and improvement of this program. We are fortunate at this time to have a council that truly wants to make a lasting difference. Please let me know if I can provide you any additional information. Best, Mandy.
Thank you. Could you please provide that to our city attorney as a copy? Because you might need that in the future. That's for our records. Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Okay, we are over
Natasha
30
has
minutes, and we need to move on to the next meeting, so we need to call a point of order at this point in time. I'm going to give you 5 more minutes so we can close this meeting up.
I just wanted to make a few comments. We've worked with housing authorities through the NARO process and through different processes of housing authorities that have transitioned and regionalized and became component units, different things that they've done since they've gone away from local governments. The services themselves still stay in the community. The services will still be for the tenants. By no means will we put 265, there's no way for us to get the units and take them to Raton. That's not how it works. The services will still stay in this community.
I think we all understand that.
And yes, but I know Councillor Howell, when he was talking about saving the program, it's not that it needs saving. Right now, what they're trying to do is just transition the management. We've had special audits, we've had different things that have came up, and what I think Housing and Urban Development, I know we refer a lot, because Mandy is our analyst, she is the one that needs to communicate this stuff to us. I don't think it's just her behind the scenes doing it. It's a group of them, and I'm sure, I know a lot of time during this discussion it was Mandy. There is a group of them that all work together. There's engineers, there's financial analysts. They all work together to get this stuff going. And there's a lot of pros to transferring, and it's just pros for the city and for the housing authority and for, most importantly, for our tenants. We're public servants, and that's what we're here for. And we're here for them. And that's all I wanted to say was that
Okay, thank you very much.
that.
We need to.
I just had one question and I have a
One last
motion.
question here.
The one question is, and I'm going to put this just bluntly, is right now there's a lot of, because of the history, a lot of legal issues that we're going through, right? And as I understand, is right now we cannot apply for certain funding because of those things, right?
Yes.
And as Ms. Gallego said, is if it goes to a larger housing authority, there's opportunity for growth for our community. There's opportunity for programs which we don't have. I'm going to make a motion right now that we have a special meeting, either Friday or Monday. And with that, I ask the city attorney to address those matters that we feel that we need to put into that resolution. If you could come up with a
Well,
draft
actually,
resolution.
go ahead, Commissioner. What I was going to recommend is that we have the city attorney, along with the staff, work on a resolution before we call the meeting, have them prepare the resolution, and then bring it to the commission at that point in time. Because the city attorney has to contact Mandy, and they have to come up with a plan of action. It's going to involve, it's not going to be an overnight thing. This is 20 years or so of public housing. There's a lot of litigation, there's a lot of issues that have been involved. And I've been here, 11 years, and there's a tremendous amount, I've got the floor, of issues and concerns that we all have. And it's going to have to take, we're going to have to take a really good team in there and negotiate what we feel is in the best interest of the city with regards to the monies that are owed, the fair market values on those monies. All of this is not going to happen overnight. So what I'd like to recommend is that we have our city manager, Tana, our housing individuals, and our attorneys sit down, because she's been more familiar with housing than anyone, and come up with viable recommendations prior to the resolution, and then bring it to an open meeting, just like this, again, to the city commission, and then at that point in time, hopefully have the resolution ready. But it's not going to happen overnight. I don't see that happening. Commissioner Casey.
I think you have the process backwards. We have to have the resolution first before those talks can take place.
And that's not what I'm hearing from our city attorney.
Well, that's not what I heard from Mandy yesterday. And the process is the resolutions come first, and then the negotiation process starts. And that's when you have the 120 days to continue the negotiations and work out the rest of the process. So what Councilor Romero is asking, that our city attorney write the 2 resolutions that we have here.
There's not just
And
going to
that
be the
we-
city attorney, it involves the team.
Well, it can be the team.
Madam Mayor, if I
But that
can-
those be redone so that we can have a special meeting on the 20th, get those approved to start the process. And then the process gets going.
And if we don't have the resolution and the process resolved by
Then
the
there's no
20th.
process. The process does not get resolved in that day. We have 120 days. That was very clear
Exactly, so-
to do the process and to negotiate those terms, think about what you want to talk about, and then that negotiation process starts. Without the resolutions, the process does not start.
Councilor Casey,
And if it doesn't start, we go to court.
if I can, isn't that what you said, that there was one resolution that started the whole process? So
Well,
that's what I'm talking
you know,
about.
what Mandy is saying is there should be this resolution to start the process. I mean, there's going to be another resolution to
Exactly.
adopt it at later on, but, you know,
This is
to me,
just to
the
begin
initial
the process.
resolution ought to be.
So that's what I'm asking
We're
for.
talking about the
Because I want to,
Exactly.
special meeting on Monday, so you could draft that first resolution,
Right.
so we could get the process started.
Yeah, and, you know, the second
and that's my
resolution,
motion.
to me, doesn't even make any
Second.
sense. So I would need to find out, like, because the authority hereby approves the operation.
It's not an action item, so you can't make a motion, you can only ask
For
for
a special meeting.
consensus.
I'm asking for a special meeting.
Yeah, you have to ask for consensus.
It can be consensus, or it can be three
Yeah.
commissioners agreeing to have a
Requested.
special meeting.
Yes, yes.
And I request a special meeting along with
Okay,
Councilor
I think
Romero.
we're doing it backwards. Okay, so I don't agree with that recommendation. I recommend that we actually have our city attorney sit down with housing,
Madam
with
Mayor,
their
this is a-
finance. And I understand that, but it has to be,
There's a motion on the floor in a second, Madam Mayor.
okay, I still have a concern about that, and I want to state that before I call for the question. And I don't believe that we should move forward with that yet until our city attorney reviews this, because nobody has more experience than you do with housing. And also our city manager, as well as our finance director and our housing individual, sit down and figure out what we're going to do first, let them start a plan. But there is a request on the floor. I don't support that request, so, Councilor Howell?
I just wanted to
I
say
call the
that,
question.
I just wanted to say that we're asking Madam Attorney to draft up the first resolution that authorizes us to move forward.
Yeah, but they're actually
Not-
calling
not
for the
asking for a
meeting,
plan.
for the plan?
No, he was asking for a meeting to adopt the first
First
resolution.
resolution to start the process.
Right, that's the end of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you do that
Yep. I
by
can do that.
Monday?
I mean, I think it has to be before Monday because we have open meeting requirements in terms of notice. So, you know, I mean, I would probably just follow this language. I mean, I would need to make a call and find out what they mean by, why there are 2 separate resolutions, even though it says, whereas this enables the city of Raton Housing Authority to operate within the jurisdiction of the city of Las Vegas. And then it says, we hereby approve the operation. I have no, it's like, what does that mean? I don't
And
know,
those
so I
are the
gotta find that out.
clarifications that
but-
all I'm asking is to start the process. and-
To me, the
Call
resolution,
Meeting until we know.
but I can prepare that. I can
Exactly.
prepare the resolution.
And once she prepares the resolution, then we should call a meeting.
Oh,
What do
well,
you
We
think?
should have the meeting.
That's not what,
Well, I'm just wondering, what do you think, Danielle?
Well, I mean, we have to have the resolution beforehand because it's
Just
got to
as
Well, we
get
would have it at
notice
that
of it.
meeting. I mean, I'm
Right, so
asking
that it
you
would
have
be
at that meeting.
adopted, I mean, considered at that meeting. And the goal of that would be to simply use the language that this is, the resolution authorizes the activities and directs management to allow both agencies to work together, you know, sort of the language that Mandy uses in this letter that we were provided. That, I think it just needs to be clear what it is you're really authorizing.
Madam
You're not
Attorney,
authorizing a transfer because you don't even know what that transfer would be at this point. But you're authorizing the the housing authority here to start negotiating with HUD and the Raton
the
Housing
process.
Authority.
And that's what
To
I'm asking
decide.
for in my motion, and I can have it Monday.
Well, you can call for the meeting, but it is I who will set the date and the time of that meeting, and I will defer to the attorney when that happens. Okay? Okay, so I called, you called for,
You can't
Let
change
me
it.
ask-
Are you amending this motion?
I am amending the motion because consistent with the
You don't-
policy, it's
I-
the
You
mayor
can't change my
on
You
the
can't change his
agenda,
motion.
on the agenda who sets the date and time, is that correct?
You cannot change his motion.
It's true? Correct? I didn't adopt the motion, I didn't call for the question, have I?
I know, but you can't change his motion.
Okay, but I do set the time and
So
date.
I can't-
regardless.
so I
I'll
can't
talk
say
to
by
the
Monday?
attorney about
Well,
the
I mean, the whole point of Monday is because Raton is having a meeting on Tuesday, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of it. I mean, if
Exactly.
you don't have the meeting on Monday, then Raton is going to take it off their agenda and they're going to put it back on after you adopt the resolution. So, I mean, to me, the whole issue of that it has to be by Tuesday is like a false,
So
you know.
give me your, I'm confused, and now that you're here, because we've had this problem, we're a governing body here. And sometimes I feel that the mayor gets to do, tell us what we do. I wasn't elected, I was elected by the people, not by her. So why can't I say I want to have a meeting on a certain day?
Well, you know, the thing about, there's issues with the city ordinances, because the city ordinances say that the mayor sets the agenda. And generally speaking, the mayor has set the date of special meetings, and that's by ordinance, and that ordinance hasn't been changed. You guys have never adopted an ordinance that would change that.
And
So,
can I just ask this, is that we tried, but we can't even change that either because we can't put it on there. So, as your attorney,
I know,
as the attorney,
it's
I'm-
like a conundrum. But, I mean, you know, there needs to be a special meeting to adopt the resolution.
So can I
But
not get-
Monday is not the absolute, it's not like a
Exactly.
drop dead
so can I
deadline.
give a deadline 1 week?
That's fair.
Is that fair?
That's fair, because that'll give us the opportunity to have our city attorney sit down with Mandy, let us know exactly what's expected, and then
I amend my motion
Thank you,
within 1 week.
thank you, that's fair. I'll appreciate that. Now I have a second.
I'll do a third.
Well, there's no thirds, but you can
Do I
vote.
roll call?
Okay.
Roll call. Commissioner Howell?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah.
Commissioner Olivari?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Romero and a second by Commissioner Casey. Thank you,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you very much, so you've got your direction.
Okay. Let me just ask one more legal opinion on that, and we'll be got that.
We've got to move on.
Item, and maybe you could just give this to us. There was one finding that had to do with personnel about them misusing funds and spending it on something they shouldn't have, and then the city used those funds to cover it. What are the, can you look into the legalities as to having that individual pay those back instead of the city taking a hit? Because I think eventually that'll be a finding on this year's audit for the regular.
The city covers that.
Yeah, Tana, could you respond to that quickly?
That was,
I think I know what she's talking about.
one of the expenses was for legal dues for the paralegal, and that came out of the, that was appropriate to take it out of the attorney's department line item, which I did transfer those expenditures into that line item. We're in the process of, as far as the travel that she did do on behalf of the housing, however, she used a private vehicle, and Mandy found an issue with that because of a family member being in the vehicle with this individual. And we're looking into recouping those funds as well.
Okay, so was there anything, I want to make this very clear, Tana.
Yes.
Give us a very clear and comprehensive response. Was there anything illegal that occurred?
If I go to the attorney,
Well, it goes to, because she's a finance person.
but the attorney would have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even,
Exactly.
without, just like off the cuff. I
Well,
mean,
could you, I
couldn't
guess
give
this is a
an opinion.
consensus, can you look into that and?
Yeah, because I don't want somebody here reporting this
Yeah.
administration again to the Attorney General's office
Right.
falsely. Or requesting another special audit that's going to cost us another $80,000 because somebody misunderstood something.
Got consensus? Can you get that?
Yeah, shoot. Is that, You want that as a consensus? I don't have a problem, I understand the
Yeah, I
process,
think so.
but it has to be
Okay,
a full
but-
consensus?
I don't mind taking a look at that, but I would rather first
Yeah,
go
yeah,
with the
yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, of course.
Do the
Okay, just I'm
resolution
worried
first,
about
that's
the-
more important.
We're in the financial audit for this
Okay,
year.
so no consensus, okay. We need to adjourn. Let's move on, please.
Madam Mayor, just a suggestion for, whenever we have an important issue that's coming up like this
We
for
should have given it
housing,
about an hour
we
to
should
an
have
hour and a
given it
half.
an hour and a half, not half an hour. That's-
I understand that, we realize that, but we need to move on. Continue, please.
The next item on the agenda is the monthly, Housing Director's monthly report. And I just did want to report briefly that we did receive approval from the Special Application Center for the de minimis application of the 5 units. We did receive written approval for that, so we can commence with that. And that's all I have for my director.
Commissioners report, Councilor Davis.
I don't have anything at
Councilor,
this
I mean
time.
Commissioner Romero.
Just to follow up on that debris, I know it's probably gonna go back to the city manager on housing that's
It's
gonna
housing.
address that.
Housing, Mr. Gissette.
I'm sorry, about what?
So the debris on,
Oh, yeah, that's something we're doing. We're addressing that.
okay, just following up.
Commissioner Casey.
I don't have anything to report.
Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Oliveira. Okay. No need for executive, I'm hoping. At this point in time, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Roll call.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes. We will have, I apologize to the public, we need to have a 2-minute recess at least and get ready for the next meeting. Go ahead, call. Roll call?
Oh, we are doing a roll call? Okay. Commissioner Davis, yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliveira?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
Commissioner Howell?
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Casey, a second by Commissioner Romero. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.